Record facility meeting quality online. Quality online is a largest study for recognitions to state of society. So call on say can get it for me to figure out a plot of so big shout out and a big huge thank you to System for organizing this event. We've been leading on this with an amazing partners. Think about what falls for them as well. As a reference of engagement, my job is to go throughout the state of Illinois and listen to other communities talk about the concerns that they have, all the way from Rockford, Illinois, down to Coverdale, Illinois, and I hear amazing things that turn to things that they really care about. Let's talk a little bit about why we're here tonight. We live in a time where cruelty is used as a weapon. It's a pure strategy. Some would like to roll back our rights, silence the voices, and turn us against women. But they cannot destroy what we refuse to surrender. Our resistance must be louder than their hate, and our law stronger than their fear. Our solidarity across race, gender, sexuality, faith, and class must be unbreakable. That's why these candidate forums are so important to democracy. You see, democracy is something that happens for us. It's something that happens to us. It's something that we do together. These conversations give us a chance to hear from the people who want to lead our communities, to ask them hard questions, and to insist that they see and serve all of us. When we show up, when we listen and hold candidates accountable, we shape the future that we deserve. Equality Minority, like I said, is proud to be a co-host of this forum because we believe that power lives in organized people, not in one person's hands. We spent decades building a pipeline of leaders and advocating for policies that affirm and protect us. And we're working so that LGBTQ people are represented in every room where decisions are made. Tonight, we're continuing that work. So here's my call to action on behalf of Equality Illinois and our 54,000 LGBTQ members across the state. Register to vote, show up, volunteer for a campaign, get involved, knock doors, talk to your neighbors, always defend the truth, always have advocacy. And then when the time comes, vote like democracy depends on it because it really does. Together we can build a more inclusive and just Illinois and a better inclusive America. One with every person, no matter who they are or who they love, and everything they enjoy. With that, I want to say thank you.
Yes, today. My name is Anisha Bonacora, the Executive Director of Congressional Illinois, the largest consultant progressive public youth coalition. We are so proud to be hosting today's forum along with 25 other co-hosting organizations for candidates running in the 2026 Democratic primary for Congressional District 7. Our organization is turning 50 years old this month. Since our beginning, we have fought to advance policies that improve the lives of working families, from making healthcare more affordable, protecting consumers, to expanding access to high-quality public education. You can learn more about our work by scanning the QR code on the screen. We believe that all voters deserve to know where candidates stand on today's most pressing challenges so that they can make educated decisions about who they want to represent them in DC. We are very grateful to our candidates for taking the time to be here today and speak directly to voters. All candidates participating in today's forum have filed their petitions for the files. And there's a couple of candidates that have explained pre-existing conflicts for us today, and we're going to be able to slip in and we will continue. Here are the ground rules for today's forum. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for opening and closing comments. Today's questions were developed in partnership with our co-hosting organizations. Some questions will be asked of all candidates, while others will be directed to a subset of candidates. Partial group elections were randomly pre-assigned to members when candidates or representatives from their team had withdrawn those members. The random draw is also determined in the seating order. For each question, candidates will have 45 seconds to answer. The lovely team from Louisville, New York, Chicago will be doing the timing for this forum. At 30 seconds left, they will hold up a 30 seconds paddle. At 15 seconds left, they will hold up a 15 seconds paddle. When your time is up, they will hold up a stop paddle. The time will allow you to finish your sentence, and then they will start ringing the bell. Candidates are not allowed to rebut outside of their allotted time to answer. With that, we will begin with 1 minute opening remarks for each candidate, beginning with Jason Friedman.
Thank you, Citizen Action. I see that Congressman Davis is here, and I think on behalf of this entire station, as far as the name of this post. Good evening, I'm Jason Friedman. I have very deep roots in this community. I'm 4 generations in Chicago. My great-grandfather started as a peddler on Maxwell Street. My grandfather, a hot dog stand on the west side. My dad and I were the early pioneers of the River North Submarine. My amazing wife and I raised our 3 great kids there and our 2 crazy dogs. I love Chicago. I love our community, but things do not seem to be going in the right direction. Our career elected officials stop fighting for us, both here and in Washington, D.C. And President Trump is taking a wrecking ball to our country, our democracy, and even the East Wing of the White House. And I just think Chris Cross because I see it everywhere. The American dream is now on affordable command. What we see also is public health is a food crisis, and we see ICE brutalizing our community. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm here to fight for everybody in this congressional district, and I'm here to work my tail off to remove. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, my name is Jasmine Day Robinson, and for over 13 years now, I've worked in the corporate world as a leader member, and my whole job is building, designing, and managing employee compensation and benefits. Benefits includes medical, dental, vision, disability, and retirement, and compensation is ensuring equal pay for equal work and competitive pay. I decided to run for Congress because I see Americans are hurting and dying due to our government failures. That is why I created a bipartisan policy called the HEAL Act, and it's universal healthcare and education. That includes childcare and also higher education. It also ends corporate and lobbyist control over Congress by banning tax cuts and lobbyist influence of money, and guarantees living wage with credits for small businesses. And I'm also making this a constitutional amendments in last for future generations. And we can pay for it all by restoring the fair tax plan we had under Franklin D. Roosevelt and also closing the tax polls base.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rory Hoskins. I've served as mayor of Village of Forest Park since 2019. I'm on my 2nd term as mayor. I began serving as village commissioner in 2007. I've been the force for change in Forest Park. Forest Park went from having a somewhat conservative government to an inclusive government that embraces new traditions and welcomes all residents. I'm running because in Forest Park, we demonstrated how to push back against the Trump agenda. From the start of this current far-right administration, Forest Park was pushed back. We pushed back against efforts to take away reproductive rights, to intimidate communities, to erase Black history. We've worked with local schools and businesses to promote Know Your Rights events. Recently, we helped 4 security workers obtain legal counsel after they were detained by ICE agents and had their rights violated. Looking for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, my name is LaShawn Ford, a candidate for Congress of the 7th Congressional District. I want the record to reflect that Congressman Davis has endorsed me Thank you for your endorsement, Congressman Davis. And thank you to the Citizen Action Illinois, everyone on the stage and in the audience for your fight for our democracy. As a lifelong resident of the district, from Cabrini Green to the west side of Chicago, I have fought for our families in the struggle for fairness. After nearly 20 years of fighting for and voting for important issues, my record demonstrates my commitment to a progressive agenda. As we all gather here today, President Trump and the Republicans in Washington are undermining our democracy. They're cutting SNAP, cutting healthcare, and putting us in a crisis for healthcare, and cutting WIC, lighting, and housing. I ask that you watch this debate closely and judge us on our merits.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. I'm gonna try to see if I can't beat that 30 seconds here. I'm a very simple candidate that's running on a very simple platform. And that platform is your platform. I've been walking all the district everywhere, met many of our colleagues here as we walk the time, and I got a very clear message. Focus on democracy and focus on the economy. And that involves a lot. So I have worked on that issue plus immigration issues as well as health issues along the way, and something I call it takes a village to raise a village. So you're going to see that. Oh, I missed it. You're going to see that very soon on my website. Actually, it's already up there. Thank you.
Evening. It is a
privilege to be here. Recognize the opportunity to engage in our democracy at this time is an honor. Fortunate to alongside these folks, I am the son of Black drivers who grew up on the South Side at a time when my parents, like many Black parents, told us we had to be twice as good in order to get half as far. I took those lessons to care for my community in the emergency department. For almost 25 years, I held hands and taken care of people in the moments that define their lives. Teachers, colleagues, classmates, and what I learned in that time is that it's not viruses or their decisions that led them to be ill, it's policies. The game's rigged. And Trump is going to make it worse, ensuring that the wealthy get better off while the rest of us fall behind. And as a result, when America catches a cold, the South and West Sides catch pneumonia. Running for Congress to demonstrate the kind of moral leadership that ungrades our game and ensures we invest in everybody, leading to us to measure the policy by the length and quality of our lives.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony Driver Jr. I'm a lifelong resident of the Southern District. 4 generations of my family called the Southern District home. And while I may be a fresh voice, I am not new to this work. I'm the labor leader. I'm the executive director of FDIU Illinois, as well as a commission president who's been able to do things like pass a bill, help to pass a $50 minimum wage, fight for paid leave for all workers in our city and our state, as well as expanding access to unions to pass the workers' rights amendment. I'm a person who's experienced the work for our city and our district has to offer and which I represent the best. I'm here today not only asking for your support, but I'm asking for your partnership and this endeavor. And last, I'm a person who's been shaped very deeply by gun violence in this city. And this campaign is built on a very simple philosophy. And it's that those closest to the pain should be close to the promise and closest to the power. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, thanks for coming out. This is what you want to say. It's important that you all are here just as much as it is that we are. I'm Rachel Walter. I'm running the lower cost of housing and healthcare group. I was born and raised in this district. I grew up in Oak Park, where I met my wife, high school at Marina, and I spent my career in federal public service. I worked with the Judiciary Committee investigating the largest companies in the world. I worked with the FTC, suing the attack. I worked with the DOJ, taking on the monopoly power that raises costs for all of us, and working with Congress to make the economy fairer. Most recently, I worked for the White House National Economic Council, the senior policy advisor, leading our fair market. We have an affordability crisis in the city and across the country. I have the experience to hit the ground running in Congress to fix this. We deserve progressive voices and progressive leaders in Chicago, and we're running our campaign the right way, not taking crypto, corporate cap, or APAC money. This is the city of big shoulders, and we deserve leadership who's going to carry us forward to a future that's worth believing.
Before I introduce myself more formally, I want to start with this. If you're like me, you're absolutely fed up with our communities being ignored. Time and again, we have been told to wait for investments to reach. But tell that to the moms putting their kids to bed hungry tonight. Tell that to the children losing their parents to mass deportation. Waiting in this moment doesn't pay the bills. Waiting in this moment is deadly. My name is Annabelle Mendoza. I am a lifelong Chicagoan, a proud daughter of immigrants raised in a working class family. And I'm not here to wait nights. I'm here because we deserve a representative who will fight for us every single hour of every single day when it is our rights, our health care, and our future that are on the line. I also serve as the communications director for the largest immigrant youth-led nonprofit in the country. I have fought shoulder to shoulder with immigrant youth who have taught me that courage is a way of life. I am ready to bring that courage to Congress. I'm ready to lead as the youngest candidate in this race and to bring new energy because we need someone who understands this is the fight of our lives.
Give her a chance. Thank you, Citizen Action. Let me also say happy birthday to you. I'm Attorney Richard Boykin. Now I'm running for Congress to disrupt the status quo. I'm that kid from Inglewood who became an attorney, became a Cook County commissioner, and as your Cook County commissioner, I stood up to the power and I got rid of the sugar tax. I also got rid of the tax on feminine hygiene products. And I banned law enforcement from choking people when they arrest them. I'm proud to have served as chief of staff to Congressman Danny Davis from 1997 to 2006. We passed a lot of great legislation during that period and brought millions of dollars back to the district. I know the district. I know where the bathrooms are. I know how to get things done. And if you elect me to this seat, I will implement the people's playbook. It calls for three things: lowering costs, creating more jobs, and making sure that all of our neighborhoods are safe. I'm Richard Boykin, and I ask for your support. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, everyone. And we hope the folks watching on the live stream, the feedback that we're getting is that folks can speak up into the mic a little bit more. So do you think everyone here can hear you? Just speak up a bit more. Well, I think that. Our first question is a small minute. What do you believe the government's role should be in providing health care as a human right, including reproductive health care and gender-affirming care, and protecting the jobs of healthcare workers? And we'll start this question with candidate Frieden and go down one. Feel free to go one right after you.
Thank you very much. Healthcare is human rights. Well, a lot of people on this stage are going to talk about a lot of different options. Right now, what is a crisis moment for us is what Trump is doing to our healthcare system. We have to block and tackle what's been happening to us, especially in this so-called big, beautiful bill, which ain't big and it ain't beautiful. I can tell you this from my experience. In my philanthropic activity, I'm involved in a hospital called Mount Sinai Hospital, which is not too far from here. The safety net hospital, level 1 trauma center. 90% of those people that walk in that hospital are on some level of federal aid. That's all at risk. If that hospital were to fail as a safety net hospital, healthcare system, we know it in the 7th Congressional District, we would not recognize. It is time for us to stand up and fight with the healthcare in front of us. And I pledge you, as your Congressman, I will do this. Thank you.
Hello. So under the HEAL Act, healthcare is completely free. That's quality healthcare. In the corporate world, I've negotiated healthcare premiums and affordability and benefits for my employees. So I've gone basically toe-to-toe with Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, And yes, gender affirming care and women's health care is included in that. Regardless of how people identify, whether transgender or as a female, they all have the same thing in common, which is they are US citizens and should be guaranteed the same freedoms, the same rights as every other American citizen. Thank you.
Healthcare is a right that includes reproductive care and gender affirming. 7 Congressional District has many hospital jobs. Hospitals drive the economy. We have to preserve our healthcare in this area. The healthcare is absolutely a right.
Thank you for the question. Healthcare, I would tell you, is my good friend Camille Lilly said, if you don't have your health, you don't have much at all. And when I think about America being the richest nation, we need to make sure that everyone has not just health care, but quality health care, where they can use it for preventative care. Preventative care has helped me as a cancer survivor. It can help so many other people in our nation. It actually helps us save taxpayer dollars when you have preventative care. So America must have health care for all people. It's human right. And my record in Springfield has proven that I support health care for all people in this city.
While they're working on that, I have a slightly different take. One of the acts that I've already put together for the called the Village Act. And about the real problem is the funding of healthcare is really what we're asking for. And it's clear that Congress has not gotten around to funding and providing good access to healthcare. They've actually taken away with the bill, right? So 20 to 40 million people out there are about to lose their discounts to actually have access. And it's going to be a horrible cry from the country when we get there. So please take a look at that Village Act. It's on my website, and I think you'll understand my approach to it. Oh, the last time. The last.
Now,
Yeah.
let's take care of patients in the emergency department. I had one of them then, and I had to choose between a pregnant woman who was bleeding and a patient on chemotherapy with a fever and pain. I'm here because my colleagues are being forced into this moral dilemma where patients are trapped and we're trapped right alongside. Health is a human right, and right now we only have 6 Democratic physicians making decisions about our lives in DC. We need a future where we've taken the corporatization out of healthcare, we provide healthcare for all, we create new solutions for the future, and we ensure that women's rights are respected at all times. So, right off the bat, I want to say unequivocally that I support Medicare for all. But I also believe that it needs to go further. I'm a person who is a product of a mom. I'm an only child because my mom didn't have access. She had 3 miscarriages before having me, and the doctor told her flat out, if you keep trying, you're going to kill yourself. She had the risk of her life to bring me into this world, and that is the origin, that is the genesis of my fight. So I stand unequivocally for Medicare for all. I think healthcare is a human right, but also we have to do things to address the Black maternal health crisis. Because if we have Medicare for all, but we're not being specific, then we haven't done a damn thing but expand access to inequality.
Sorry, everybody, about being late. I'm Tina Collins. So, I don't think I'm saying anything different about supporting a universal healthcare system in a country where other developed countries around the world have caught up and we haven't. But I think what the government should be doing now is going a step further. We have to legally protect our providers at this point. Providers who are going to be providing reproductive health care and being told by our government that they can't do it. So one of the initiatives and things that I definitely would think will be important is making sure that physicians will not be legally held responsible for providing quality health care, specifically for those who are seeking reproductive care. Thank you.
Like, I believe that healthcare is a human rights, and that gender affirming care is healthcare, and abortion care is health. We have an obligation and a duty to make sure we're protecting the health of our citizens, because you don't have freedom if you don't have access to your health. But the way to do that is not just to pursue Medicare for all. We obviously need to do that. We need to also make sure that we're getting the corporatized rot out of our system. We already pay twice as much as our peer countries for healthcare, and we have worse outcomes. It makes me crazy when I hear that we can't afford universal health. We're paying for our government. We're paying for it twice over. And so we need to make sure that we are showing up in Congress and getting to the basic human right of healthcare that is not delivered to for-profit companies that are trying to increase time.
We have a broken healthcare system in this country, and it shows. It shows here in the 7th District, where you can live in a neighborhood like Streeterville and live 30 years longer than someone who lives in Englewood. That is unconscionable, especially when we live in the richest country in the world. Everyone deserves healthcare. Universal healthcare is a right for all, and I believe that that needs to include reproductive care, gender affirming care, mental health, dental, and vision. I also think it's important to know that immigrants pay billions of dollars into our Medicare system and reap none of the benefits. That is not fairness. For that are. It's not paying to everybody.
To deny a person health care is inhumane. Seniors should not have to choose between seeing a doctor and getting health care or putting food on their table. We got to make sure that Medicare for all and health care for everybody is acceptable. It is a right. Let me tell you, I agree that we got to do something about the conditions in these communities. Austin, Lawndale, East and West Garfield. We got to make sure that we take the lead pipes out of the homes so that children aren't impacted by lead and their brains are not developed fully. We got to make sure that we provide access to fresh fruits and vegetables for everybody throughout the 7th District. We have great health care assets in the 7th District. We got to marry those assets to the poverty. Thank you.
The federal reconciliation bill grants more than $150 billion in additional funding to immigration, customs enforcement, and ICE, on top of regular annual appropriations, at a time when ICE agents are terrorizing our communities. How would you work to hold ICE accountable, and what role do you think Congress should play in shaping or restricting ICE's funding and activities? And for this question, we will start with candidate Robinson, go down the line, and candidate Green.
So I'm advocating for actually abolishing ICE. They were established in 2003 and have just caused so much harm to our community. Actually, they've been violating the Constitution over and over again. And I think everyone who has been part of ICE that has done this needs to be tried and banned from any future law enforcement, and also banned from staying in any part of government. I think the government's job is to provide a clear and safe pathway for anyone who wants to work in this country, live in this country, or become a U.S. citizen. Right now, the system is broken, and it's intentional to stop other folks from coming, living, working in the United States. Diversity is not a bad thing. Every single person, including us, we're all immigrants here, and that is what makes the country great. Thank you.
Right now, the federal government has a program called Skills Schools, where employees within the military are being encouraged to join ICE. They're being given $50,000 bonuses to join ICE. Right now, ICE is on the rampant terror throughout the country, but particularly this area, violating rights, operating good lists has been a failure. It's characterized by causing terror, intimidation, disrupting local communities. It's simply malice. The agents who are violating the rights of Americans are either poorly trained or malicious. But either way, it's unacceptable. And so as the local government and as federal government, we have to document every single abuse. There will be a reckoning, and when the reckoning comes, the agent will not be able to say, hey, I was only following orders.
The current places threatening all our democracy, and we should all be afraid of what's happening in America today. And I would tell you, when we talk about healthcare and the need to make sure that people have access to high quality healthcare, access to preventative care, just think about the money that was seen to terrorize our communities. That money can be spent to heal our nation. And so this Prop ICE is unconstitutional, and I'm against it. I'm afraid for our nation, and we should all be afraid, regardless if you're black or white, but it's taken to your head. And we should get afraid with this ICE.
So in this introduction, I would say the answers to the first three questions already wrong. So I'm Alyssa Conyers, urban, humble to be Chicago City Treasurer. I am a young lady born and raised in the 7th Congressional District, now raising my 9-year-old daughter in this district as well. Raised by a single mother, know what it means for working families to struggle, rely on government assistance to be able to provide for their families. In regards to healthcare assistance, I will talk a little bit more later about how I know firsthand the needs of working families when it comes to protection of Medicare and Medicaid. Last and certainly not least, what is happening in the streets with ICE is un-American. I cannot believe when I think about just this past weekend alone, Halloween is one of the most popular holidays for young kids. And the fact that some of these kids in our community was not able to enjoy this weekend simply because they are being terrorized by ICE agents in our community is not only un-American, but it is something that we need to fight for. Our challenges with the Democratic Party is that we need to fight harder when it comes to our communities.
Okay, we don't think we need to talk about the issues in the moment we're currently living. I think we need to talk about the solution that we're living. Personally, I've already filed a class action suit. I'm hoping the ACLU will pick it up. It's got 6 different categories of lead plaintiffs, and hopefully they'll get some drive. I think that the Trump administration really has to be sued in all 94 districts across the country, and that'll lift him up. Once he has to pay $500 million each for each district. The other thing that I've also done is that I'm actually forming a petition that's going across the country. You'll be able to sign for it. And that petition is going to ask for the impeachment for the violation of the president and the vice president, and also a change in the Speaker of the House, which also violated our Constitution, the Constitution that he took an oath to defend and he's not doing it. Oh, sorry for it. There's a third thing, but I can't mention it.
Spend tens of billions of dollars to ICE, but we don't have money for SNAP. We don't have money for Medicaid. We don't have money for the subsidies of the Affordable Care Act. And in the meantime, we have troops on the streets rounding up our neighbors, terrorizing them, racially profiled. This is a moral issue. This is not a group that, after demonstrating this reckless assault on our Constitution and rounding up our neighbors, can be reformed. Congress needs to take steps in order to hold them accountable with congressional hearings and prosecutions once we change over Congress in these cases.
So I'd like to echo the sentiments of a lot of my colleagues on the stage. But I also like to say that we're not going to be able to just legislate our way out of this problem. We're going to have to organize our way out of it. And so anybody who's promising that they can do something right now, that's just a legislative fix, is not going to give enough. We need to be outside right now, joining arms, banding together with our community, organizing against it. The other thing I'll say is that when the Democrats finally take the House and they cut funding for ICE, those folks are going to need jobs. Every blue state in this country should right now decertify anybody that has a history with ICE or CBP. If you're one of those agents who've been terrorizing our community, running around like cowboys, masked up, not even able to identify who you are and hold you accountable, you should be decertified from working in any other law enforcement agency in this country.
So of course I support the abolition rights. It's actually one of the first attacks Fox News gave against me when I ran in 2022. was calling for the abolition of ICE because I knew that this very radical tactical unit was going to come into our neighborhoods and do exactly what they're doing now. This is bigger than just abolishing ICE. This is our representatives calling for an end to Citizens United. Why? Because all of this big money that's in politics are being funded by these private centers and other people who are convincing our elected officials that they shouldn't move on situations like abolishing. So one, we have to get corporate PAC out of our political system, number one, and PAC. Number two, we can abolish our, and number three, we do have to organize and link arms with people in our community.
I want to take a second to acknowledge also that immigrants are Americans too. They're not criminals. They're people who picked up their lives, their homes, their communities, and came here because they believe in the American dream. We should be welcoming them and honoring having citizenship and safety. And the ICE caps in our neighborhoods are disgusting and reprehensible. I, like many of my colleagues on the stage, would support accountability and retribution against those who have illegally acted to terrorize our neighborhoods. And we need to take steps further to make sure that we are supporting them with a dignified path to citizenship and pathways to make sure that there is legal status.
ICE needs to be abolished, we need to ban the masks, and we need to hold every single ICE agent who has violated someone's due process or constitutional rights accountable. I have worked in the movement for years, I have been calling for this for years. Also, under my leadership within the immigrant rights movement, I helped lead a coalition to block over 15 billion of our taxpayer dollars going to ICE and PD. And I want to take this moment to also acknowledge that for too long, immigration has been treated as an issue that only concerns immigrants. That is not the case. That is all of our issues. The money that goes to ICE and CBP is money not going to our schools, not going to our hospital or to our neighborhood. It should. So this is all of our issues. We need to understand that not only do we need to fight shoulder to shoulder with immigrants, but we need to build power with immigrant workers. Thank you.
No, we need to fight. We need to fight like hell and hold them accountable. And we will do that. We must do that. They are violating not just people's rights, but they're violating the Constitution of the United States of America. We must stand for the Constitution. And just as there are no kings in America, congressional seats aren't thrones to be bequeathed to unworthy people. We must hold people accountable. We must vote, and we must vote every chance we get and organize. Let me say this finally. President Trump has decided to pay half of the benefits to SNAP beneficiaries. What, they gonna get half a sandwich, half a meal? It makes absolutely no sense. The courts need to hold him in contempt of their orders to pay the full benefit for SNAP beneficiaries. Thank you. What we're seeing on our streets of Chicago is unconscionable and it's un-American. Seeing families get torn apart, children ripped away from their mothers. Where is the empathy and kindness that makes our country so great? This is a nation of immigrants, and instead, we've emboldened the 15th largest standing army in the world with ICE, larger than all of the standing armies of France and Germany. How is this possible? As your congressman, I will fight every single day for our neighbors. I will be there for us. And you know what else I'll do right now? I would encourage all of us to do. Let's all go to Little Village. Let's all go to immigrant communities right now that are feeling scared to support their businesses. Let's go to Know Your Rights meetings. This is something that all of us should be engaged with. Thank you.
Especially in the Metro East and South Side of Chicago, face chronic air and water pollution. What steps will you take in Congress to strengthen EPA enforcement and support state level implementation? This question is for candidates 8, 6, 3, and 7. Candidates Driver Jr., Fellow, Hoskins, and Fisher, beginning with candidate Driver Jr.
Yeah, so, one, I'm a proponent of the Green New Deal. But also recognizing that we need to make sure we're funding research that studies the environmental impacts that are happening in our community. I'm a person who has struggled with asthma most of my life. When I moved to DC for 8 years, I no longer needed an asthma pump. The moment I came back to my community in backyards, I had asthma. The air that we're breathing is toxic. Clean water and clean air is a human right. So we need to make sure that we're strengthening the EPA, we need to make sure that we pass the Green New Deal. We need to make sure that we're funding studies that look at the environmental impact, through a racial lens, through a class lens, through an economic lens, to ensure that no person in our state, no person in our city, no person in our district is going to off.
Thank you.
The fact that we got out of a global effort to help our world and help ourselves live in a better climate is really quite a shame, because it doesn't impact us so much, it just impacts our future generation. I think we'll survive, but this earth has a way of knocking off 99% of the species, and it's gonna win in the long run. So we've got to make it for our generation. So any effort that helps us get back on track is important.
Thank you. And happiness.
Thank you. So we have to fund the EPA, we have to fund environmental research, we have to fund all of the institutions that allow predictability within our systems, and we have to trust science. The harm the Trump is doing to our environment and to our institutions is absolutely unconscionable. He's causing so much unpredictability and the harm to research. The fact that we can't even trust research anymore is a crime. And so as members of Congress, we have to trust in the science and rely on the experts.
Whether it's lead in the water or particulate matter in the air, the quality and nature of our lives is impacted by our environment. Fortunately, in low-income and Black communities in our cities and our states, the research is clear. Folks coming to the emergency department regularly not only impacted by what happens at home, but in addition, the sorts of exposures they have in the kinds of jobs that rarely provide the sorts of protections that ensure people remain healthy when they're working in toxic environments. We need to strengthen the EPA. We need to ensure OSHA and its forces allow for folks to be protected. And we need to ensure that these things are funded at the state and local level so that we get lead out of the water and the pollution out.
Would you support raising the federal minimum wage, and to what amount? And how would you fight for policies like paid family leave, equal pay, and affordable childcare, even in a divided Congress? This question is candidate 10, 9, 4, and 2, candidate Showalter, Collins, Ford, and Robinson, beginning with candidate Showalter.
First, yes, absolutely, we can and should raise federal minimum wage. There should be a floor of $15 an hour. We should make sure to index that, especially in high cost areas like Chicago, for example, or New York. It's simply not enough to pay $15 an hour. We need to make sure that we're protecting the fair wages of workers who are making our economy run. I also, above and beyond that, support policy to make sure that no company can pay its CEO or its executive leadership more than 40 times what it pays its lowest paid employee. It's simply not fair, not appropriate for giant companies to be able to pay executive compensation when people are in distress. Across the wider set of benefits for paid family leave and medical leave, we need to make sure that we're protecting both paid sick time, family leave, and keeping pace with our colleagues in Europe and across the developed world for humane policies.
It's problem. Okay. Is it on? Okay. So I do support raising the federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage actually hasn't been raised since I was a senior in high school in 2009. So that's how I am 34 now. So that's how long it has been. I've worked in tandem and shoulder with groups like One Fair Wage that push workers to get a raise, wage here in the city of Chicago, and we'll continue that work in Washington, D.C. I'm gonna keep it really simple. We need an ultra wealthy tax, on the ultra wealthy in this country. How do we pay for universal child care and all of these things? Jeff Bezos paid his taxes. So that we are not building this economy off the back of the middle class and the working poor, who are the life and the lifeblood of our entire economy. This is work that I've done previously through the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act, fighting for paid leave for women, and just families in general.
Thank you. I would tell you that working in Springfield and being the city representative, I fought for progressive tax to help pay for child. And also led legislation to deal with pay. And we talk about how much we should raise minimum wage too. I've also led fought with state legislature and being to give a higher pay in the state of Illinois. What would the rate be for federal government? We need a living wage. We can't set a wage for American workers. We need a living wage so that they can deal with inflation. Inflation changes, and when you set a law, it takes time to change it. So we need to have a living wage for individuals that will go with the cost of living.
So yes, I would support raising the federal minimum wage to an actual living wage. And the cost of living depends on where you live. If you live in a city, that's $20 to $30 an hour. And if you live in rural areas, it's $15 to $20 an hour. I would also make this so that it automatically updates annually and make it a constitutional amendment so that future generations are protected. The reason we cannot get this done is because super PAC and lobbyist money are buying out Congress representatives by funding their campaigns. Those Congress representatives are voting based on their donors, their corporations and lobbyists versus listening to their voters. Thanks.
Next question, Alderman Sophianis. What measures would you support to prevent gun violence, including accidental shootings, suicides, intimate partner violence, and school shootings? Candidates 7, 11, 1, and 12. Candidates Fisher, Mendoza, Friedman, and Boykin, beginning with candidate Fisher.
I'm working in a police department that is so full of gun violence that we soldiers come training to us in order to prepare for the battlefield. On this summer night, I regularly change my scrubs twice because they've been soaked with blood taking care of young men and women who have been shredded by gun violence. We need new flag laws to ensure that guns stay out of the hands of people who can cause, who have violence. We need to make sure that the strong purchasers that we know come from Indiana that lead to guns in the hands of folks from the south and west side are taken care of. We also need the sort of upstream issues that ensure that folks who have the sort of resources they need so they believe in a future that means they never pick up the guns in the first place. There are a number of other solutions we have to make guns safer, including things like gun locks, and ensure that young people do not commit suicide or harm themselves.
The epidemic of gun violence has absolutely ravaged our communities, whether it's gang violence, mass shootings in our school, or domestic violence. And even if we've been lucky enough to never have experienced gun violence personally, many of us are just 1 degree of separation from someone who has. There is so much that our federal government can and must do to combat the public health crisis that is gun violence. That includes banning assault weapons, closing loopholes so that gun shops cannot continue to skirt the law, holding gun manufacturers accountable for the carnage that their weapons create, and also strengthening background checks so that guns cannot be readily available on our streets. Thank you.
We have a multi-generational gun violence epidemic here in our community. These are preventable loss of life that we have. You know what, as your congressman, I will always support common sense gun legislation. Dr. Fisher said, red flag laws, background checks, reasserting the assault weapons ban, stopping multi-state guns from coming into our state. This is something we have to do, we must do, but it goes beyond this. It makes us look at the root cause of the problem. The University of Chicago crime labs is a great spot that we should be looking at. It also requires to look at criminal justice reform itself, both on the way in and on the way out. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Gun violence is one of the most committed issues we face in our community. Well, the leading cause of death for young black men in 15 to 44 is homicide. It's been that way for the last 50 years. It's time for us to change that dynamic. I am the only person up here who has a public safety plan that I've actually put on my website. We will have smart gun technology where the gun can only be fired if it has your biometrical data on the gun. And we'll also expand federal prosecution of gun crimes, especially gun crimes committed on CTA and other public spaces. We have to do something about this. It's too important to all of us. We got to live in safe neighborhoods. And this is a very big priority for the Awaken campaign. Thank you.
August 2025, 25,000 federal employees have been stripped of their collective bargaining rights by the Trump administration, silencing their voices on critical workplace issues like job safety, fair discipline, and political immunity. Collective bargaining gives workers a voice on the job. It ensures that public services are delivered effectively without fear of retaliation by managers, and prevents the politicization of the civil service. How will you restore and strengthen collective bargaining rights for federal public employees and workers across the country? This question is for candidates 6, 2, 5, and 12. Candidates Tello, Robinson, Conyers, Urban, and Hoyt. Beginning with candidate Tello.
So I'm definitely an advocate for unions. The work that they do not only raises their membership, but it also represents the other 89% of workers who do not have, who do not have any kind of advocacy. So the real important thing is I am working through, I perform a 501c3 organization that is focused on advocacy for the non-union workers. And I want to collaborate with the unions to see if they can take up the advocacy for their financial to help all the non-workers. And there's 189 million workers out there, and they all need advocacy. So it's very important we get this done. It's just the economic engine of our economy. We have to defend our workers.
Thank you. Candidate Robinson.
So unions are part of Chicago's history. They are truly the lifeblood of Chicago, and there is so much history with unions here. Also, studies show that unions have better benefits and pay because they're a collective unit bargaining for themselves. And in order to strengthen that, I think what we should do in Congress is make it a requirement that every corporation, even if it's public or a private corporation, have them require their employees to vote if they want to form a union, right? There's so much union busting happening that people's rights are actually being snubbed. So the only way to do that is to provide guardrails to protect American citizens. And if they want to unionize, they should be able to unionize, and no corporation should ever stop that. Thank you.
You can kind of.
I mentioned that my mother was a single parent. When my mother was a union member, actually a union steward, she was very proud. I spent many days in the union hall. I watched my mother fight for employee rights. I also watched that good paying union job that kept food on the table for my mother's 3 girls to be shipped overseas. So before City Treasurer of Chicago, I was actually Illinois State Representative. And I was proud to sponsor legislation that protected and restored collective bargaining rights for our teachers of CPS. I will also tell you that I think that when we look at union jobs, it goes in collective bargaining. It goes well beyond even our imagination. When we talk about climate change, as City Treasurer of Chicago, I divested in fossil fuel companies to make certain that we were fighting back for climate change. I will also say we need to look at good paying green union jobs to be able to fight climate change. Last but certainly not least, I think it's going to take legislation and it's also going to take work because we need advocacy and we need action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll support the PRO Act in Congress. I'm a yes on that. That helps to protect collective bargaining. And as a county commissioner, I consistently voted to support and protect union rights, bargaining. And I voted to make sure that they have a livable wage in Cook County. And so I did everything I could as a county commissioner on that front. I am the son of a union member as well. My dad was a UAW member. He worked for 33 years at Ford Motor Company. And so I saw him operating and making sure that that he brought money home and so that we could eat and that sort of thing and survive. And so I'll always support union rights to collectively bargain. Thank you.
Growing push to criminalize homelessness and mental illness. President Trump's July 24th executive order, for example, seeks to end support for housing first policies and redirect federal resources toward forcing people with serious mental illness who are experiencing homelessness into long-term institutional settings. This has raised serious concerns about due process and human rights. What policies will you advocate for to end homelessness and to ensure that people struggling with mental illness are not arrested or involuntarily institutionalized? This is for candidates 8, 3, 9, and 11, candidates Driver Jr., Hoskins, Collins, and Mendoza, beginning with candidate Driver Jr.
So we have affordability crisis. We have affordability crisis in the city, we have affordability crisis in the country. One of the ways that we're gonna have to build more affordable housing is by increasing our housing stock. When we build more housing and increase the stock in general, it drives the demand down, which also drives down the cost of living. That's first and foremost. Second, when it comes to addressing mental health, the federal government should be funding mental health in the cities right now. So we had, like we do in Chicago, where mental health responders go out with the police department when there's a mental health crisis, we get a lot more success. And that's something that the federal government should be funding right now. It's something that I've worked on not only as CCC as state president, but also as executive director of the labor union. Homelessness should not be a criminal act. Everyone should have the right to live safely and with dignity.
Thank you.
So I'm a former social worker, and at one point in my career, I worked for Hines Veterans Hospital. I worked in the psychiatric ward at Hines Veterans Hospital. We found that in many cases, the veterans who had some kind of episode, whether it was related to substance or some other cause, were able to get care through the veterans system. So by fully funding our VA systems, that's one way to address some of the mental health crises and prevent homelessness. On the local level, we support groups like Housing Board and other groups locally that provide housing. But then we can take some of that money from ICE. There's still a big infusion of money from the ICE and divert that into housing and mental health issue, mental health problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
So housing is a healthcare issue, and this goes into the healthcare question that we went into. We have to get affordable housing. There's absolutely no way around it. I think that, you know, the population that suffers the most in Illinois 7 are our seniors that oftentimes get left out of the conversation. I actually support expanding Medicare usage of Section 202 of Medicaid and Medicare to be used as rental assistance for people who can't afford their rents. As far as the mental health crisis and decriminalizing it, we need to invest in expanding a mental health course. So that means eliminating college debt for people who want to go to school to join this particular profession, and it means investing in other alternatives outside of policing.
Homelessness is a solvable issue, one that our federal government has failed to address by investing billions of our taxpayer dollars, your taxpayer dollars, into ICE or giving massive tax breaks, like $117 billion tax break to the ultra wealthy. That is money that needs to come to our city, to our neighborhoods. We need to invest in robust mental health services, but we also need to pass legislation to control rent. Right now, rent is skyrocketing. People are earning poverty wages. People are spending more than half of their monthly income on rent alone. That is unacceptable. And they are one crisis away from being unhoused. Not a single one of us is better than someone who is unhoused. We are just luckier. So we need to ensure that we are investing in policies that protect everyone in our community.
Many immigrants with disabilities face barriers to accessing healthcare, legal protections, and public benefits because of both immigration status and disability. What steps would you take at the federal level to ensure that immigrants with disabilities have equitable access to healthcare, services, and accommodations? For candidates 5, 4, 10, and 1, candidates Conyers Urban, Ford, Showalter, and Freeman, beginning with candidate Conyers Urban.
One of the many hats that I is also a caretaker for disabled who's actually seen. And I took over the custody of my disabled sister. I had 2 college degrees. And it was very difficult for me to even understand all of the benefits, especially when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. We need to do more when we look at what's going on with our immigrants, as well as those that are disabled in our community. We need to make certain that we are fighting for their protections, and we need to make sure that they have affordable health care coverage. I'll say this in closing. My sister, all medications that she takes, one of them is over-the-counter or aspirin. The insurance company denied coverage for that. Now, because I am able to provide for her, of course, I purchased that on my own. But what if my sister did not have that assistance being disabled? She would have to come out of her pocket because they said that aspirin is not prescribed medicine, but over the counter. If I have a headache every so often, that's over the counter. If I have to take that medication every day, that's prescriptions that should be covered, and we need to make sure that we are going after the big pharma to protect our immigrants and those that are disabled.
Thank you.
Immigration is something that this country needs to fix. I mean, if we don't have comprehensive immigration reform, it only drags our country down. Because then you have a president like Trump that has an excuse to implement martial law in our cities. So it's our job as congressional members to have comprehensive immigration reform so that we can make sure that we protect America and people on our territories.
Thank you. Candidate Law.
What you hear is getting people who deserve access to our social safety net, access to the benefits that they deserve and rely on. Immigrants and people with legal status are just as entitled to this as all of us. So are people with disabilities. And far too often, we have watched the federal bureaucracy weaponized by Republicans and conservatives to find ways to not pay out the benefits that people are entitled to. In Congress, I would fight to make sure that these are generally applicable and generally available, that people are not being hit with undue work requirements and insane paperwork that deny them the ability to access. And beyond that, we need to make sure, as several of my colleagues have said, to organize our local communities to recognize the dignity and importance of all of these.
Of course, your congressman, I will always support helping our immigrants, especially those with disabilities. But one thing I've heard over and over again as I've crisscrossed this district, before we had an influx of immigrants and migrants, was that we had a healthcare crisis before them. We had a disability crisis before them. We had a mental health crisis before them. And every time people would raise their hand and say, we had an emergency, we have a problem, and they were told over and over again, we have no money. Well, they found $750 million from the immigrants and migrants. I will be there to fight for everybody. And this is not an issue of funding, it's an issue of priority. It's priority for everyone, whether they're immigrants or they're here in our community right now. Is your congressman who will fight for everyone, immigrants, and those folks that are here. Thank you.
To all candidates. How do you believe Congress should approach policies related to gender affirming care for transgender youth and adults? Starting with candidate Hoskins, then we'll go back. Candidate Hoskins.
So in terms of gender affirming care for youth, if the parents are agreeing, then of course. In some cases where a youth is estranged from the parent and has reasons and is sought counseling, there should be mechanisms to allow them to make decisions in their own care with some supervision from.
This is an issue that's been up in Springfield, and it's something that's been debated. I mean, gender affirming care is health care. And the debate has always been, should government use money to pay for it? You know, in Illinois, we're very progressive. This would be an issue that would be up for debate for all states. If you check the record, my record will prove that it was debated in Illinois, not supported.
Talk a lot about myself because I think that it's important that we understand and know that people that are trying to represent us are like us. Kids are being bullied each and every day in school. I'm a mother of a daughter that is 9 years old. Not only are kids facing bullying in school, but they are facing bullying from the government. We need to do more to protect our children. Instead of ostracizing them, we need to embrace them, love them, and support them.
Members voting in this country thought that they could get involved in our personal decisions, our health decisions, and so forth, but it's a mess where we think the government has the right to tell us how we live our life, how we decide who we love and who we don't love. It's just plain bonkers. So in my decision about home and healthcare and so forth, I have a provision in that bill that is actually focused on getting government out of our own decisions and our access to healthcare.
When people come to you for care, you recognize that we are all one. We have shared humanity. That does not vary based on your gender, your age, your race, your citizenship status. Everybody deserves the care that they need, and these are the sorts of decisions that happen within the healthcare environment between families and providers. The government doesn't have a role in this, and we ought to have the opportunity to ensure that everybody has healthcare resources that they need to get the services that are required in order for them to be healthy.
So I'd like to say, first and foremost, as a value statement, that I stand with the marginalized, I stand with the downtrodden, I stand with the left out. I know what it feels like to suffer from gun violence. I know what it feels like to not have adequate access to care. I know what it feels like to go alone. And in this moment, when there's so many hating forces in our country, we need to lead with love. That should be our first and foremost principle. So people who are seeking gender affirming care, whether you're a child or an adult, in conversation with your parents, your support system, they should be able to receive the care that they need and deserve. Hard stop.
I'm glad to hear that everybody is basically on the same page, that we will protect and expand the access to gender affirming care. And when we say Medicare for all, that means comprehensive, culturally competent healthcare. Using the right languages like pronouns that this administration continuously dismisses as something that's not important. It's respecting the personhood of the patient and giving them the autonomy to make those decisions. But I want to express once again, we are in a different era, and this is no longer just about us fighting for federal funding or voting the right way or saying the right things. It's literally about protecting our providers who are going to be brave enough and bold enough, and those doctors and physicians and nurses who will stand on the front lines to protect the most marginalized communities that will be coming to them. And those are the folks who I want to make sure that we codify federal legislation. Thank you.
This is an easy question. Gender affirming care is healthcare. And just as all of us deserve access to universal healthcare, so too, if you make a decision with your doctor and in your heart, you deserve access and appropriate funding and support in that healthcare.
As I said before, universal health care must include gender affirming care. My husband's side, he has a cousin who has been a huge part of this campaign with helping us look through all of our signatures. And that cousin is transitioning. And she told me that without the medical support she had, her options were either that or she wouldn't be here. Think about that. Let that sink in. She would have taken her own life because our government would have failed her. That is unacceptable. In Congress, I would fight for everybody, including the right for gender affirming care, knowing that that is healthcare and that is life-saving healthcare, just as every other form of healthcare is. Thank you.
I agree. Gender affirming care must be protected. And it is a decision that really is between the doctor and the patient. And government should not get in between that decision. Look, I grew up in England, and I know what it's like to see bullies and be bullied, but these kids are individuals who, are seeking this care. We have to make sure that they have space to get it. There are psychological issues around this, and that's why it's best out of the hands of government and left into the hands of doctors and family and support system. Thank you.
Gender affirming care is very, very important, and it is an easy question. We must always stand by those who are most vulnerable. I have a number of friends with children who talk through this. This is a very private and difficult decision that parents make with their children and their doctors. And the other alternative for many of them is potentially suicide, which is terrible. It's awful to think. We must stand again with those who face these very challenging decisions. We must lead with empathy and kindness.
So I'm proposing for universal free quality health care, and that includes gender affirming care. In terms of the youth, that is a private decision that should be determined by not only themselves, but also in collaboration with their parents and their medical care providers. Now, I understand there are some individuals who hold their religion very close, and they have concerns regarding health. Our founding fathers did not want religion within our government. I would also remind folks that if you are a Roman Catholic like myself, what God preached is to love yourself and love your neighbor as you love God. And if somebody is asking for gender affirming care and the other option is suicide, I don't know how anyone could say that they would be against it. Thank you.
Closing remarks. Donald Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill, we call it the Big Ugly Bill, created a permanent universal voucher program that will redirect billions of public dollars to private schools. At a time when public schools are already underfunded, would you support an effort to repeal this program, starting with candidate 4?
That's a good question for me. Thank you. Anything that Trump does, I'm against. The answer is yes.
As a product, it's a product of Chicago public schools, elementary, high school, public university. I believe in funding our public education. Every child deserves the right to education, and education should be equitable, and it should not matter the zip code or the family circumstances. Thank you. I think we all can agree that we oppose trauma staying. However, we do want to make certain, I want to conclude my comment by saying we must do more to fund public education. It is a right no matter the zip code. If it was not for my public education, I would not today be city treasurer of Chicago, managing over $10 billion of taxpayers' money.
Yes, yes. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to say that we are aiming too low with the minimum wage. We need 189 million people to stand up and say they should share in the profits of these businesses who are making hand over fist, I like to use this word, I'm sorry. Hand over fist, and we need to force that based on margin, profit margins that they have gained. And AI is right behind this. There's gonna be a lot of people out of work when AI really picks up steam. So please, don't aim so low with low. We have to aim harder and get these people who are making money hand over fist. Please share their profits.
Like many of you on the stage, I'm a product of the Chicago Public Schools. If it weren't for Mrs. Brown and her Black History class, we wouldn't be here today. And now here we are burning books, deciding what can be taught, what shouldn't be taught, eradicating the education department and the school rights systems that allow for everybody to get the sorts of education that they deserve. We need the sort of funding that comes to our public schools that ensures that our zip code don't define the quality of our schools. We need educational output comes besides elementary and high school that extend to community college and public universities. And we need the sort of loan forgiveness that allow folks who graduate from school to start their lives from.
So, no question. On day one, you can count on my vote to make sure that we repeal that and that we roll it back. But also as a labor leader who is the executive director of the labor union, where we represent 15,000 members in the school district, I know that our workers are backbone of our schools. I also know what it felt like. I thought it was running that in Inglewood when Rahm Emanuel closed 50 schools, and it was a consolidation, right? But what nobody considered was what does that do when you have to cross the game line to go to school? So many of those schools are getting under enrolled because students couldn't cross certain territories to get there, and Safe Passage didn't do enough. So you can count on my vote and know that I will never support siphoning dollars away from public institutions for profit.
No, we should not be giving public education dollars to open charter schools and siphoning money away from the public education system. But this is a systematic game by the Trump administration. They know that education is a great equalizer. And I was raised by CTU educators, a bullhorn in one hand and a book in another. And now we're in a generation where they are banning books and they are banning the opportunity for children to learn the Constitution so that they can think for themselves. So while this is a very easy choice that we should be funding public education, I think that as they continue to gut and try to come for the public education system, I am a part of the crowd that says we need to go on a general strike here in the United States of America against this administration. Thank you. Bye.
Likewise, I would absolutely oppose and vote to repeal this individual bill in its entirety, including the charter program and funding of public schools. I think there's a deeper question here, though, of how do we actually fund the education that is the engine of economic mobility in the United States? For a very long time, and several of my colleagues have referenced this, it is exclusively the province of local zip codes, property taxes. We need to make sure that we are expanding that. I support a wealth tax, and we should make sure that we are taxing the fabulously wealthy and making sure that those resources are generally available so that you do not have to, so that the trajectory of your life is not determined by the presence of McMansions in your neighborhood.
Yes, I would support repealing these vouchers, and also I can speak to this as someone who received an extremely well-resourced education here in Chicago, from kindergarten all the way through high school. I was extremely privileged to have this kind of education. And I saw what that investment translated to. It meant low teacher to student ratios. It meant an entire center dedicated to supporting students with disabilities. This should not be the exception. It should be the rule for every single student across Chicago and across America. There are so many students on the south and west sides who have been abandoned, and they are brilliant. And they deserve to have a member of Congress who will fight for them, that they can see themselves reflected. I would not be standing here today as the youngest candidate running in this race had it not been for the quality education that I received. So I would fight tooth and nail to bring our dollars to our public schools where they deserve to be. Thank you.
Well, I am for public education and dollars going to public education. But obviously, none of my colleagues read the big lousy bill. Because that provision doesn't siphon scholarship dollars to give to charter schools or private schools. That provision takes dollars that the state can actually use for tutoring, for transportation, and for other things to help kids catch up. The nation's report card just came out last week. It showed that African American students and brown students are far behind white students in terms of reading and math proficiency. We got to do something about it. It's been that way for the last 10, 15 years. We got to do something about it. Our kids need to be equal. They need to catch up. We got to make sure that we deal with the proficiency stuff. ISB actually lowered the standards so that people could seem like they were making it, and they still didn't make it, even though they lowered the standards. So I'm for opting in. That actually is a decent provision. It doesn't matter if the person who's talking a good idea is a good idea. Like,
This issue sources for me. My wife is right there as a former CPS teacher. I saw firsthand what an underfunded school looked like. Our public education system is the bedrock of our country and our society. And just like Mr. Boynton said, only a third of our children right now are at reading at proficient levels of reading and math. That's not their failure. That's our failure. China isn't doing that to us. We're doing that. Our elected officials are letting us down left and right when it comes to our children and funding public education. And this isn't an issue of funding this or that or a binary choice. It is about a priority. Over 51% of our discretionary spending in the federal government goes to the Pentagon. Think about if we just took 2% of that towards public education, the bedrock and foundation of our society.
Under the GALE Act, education would be free. That includes childcare and public higher education. I completely want to ban any taxpayer dollars going to private education. State shouldn't. Taxpayer dollars should only go to public. Also, the reason why I believe this is happening is because the first thing dictators, fascists do is attack our education. They know if you attack education, that's easier for a dictator to rise in government. And that's the first thing previous dictators have done. So we need to protect our education and invest in it. Also, the super PAC lobbyists and PACs are funding this, right? They're funding our Congress representatives' campaigns, which then decrease funding for our education. Thank you.
I support funding public education. My wife is a public school teacher. I'm a product of public schools. What Trump wants to do is he wants to prop up these Christian, white, nationalist academies. And he wants to use public dollars for that purpose. What Trump also wants to do is gut the Department of Education. He wants to gut programs that serve the most needy families. Children who learn differently. Programs for bilingual education. And treatments. Trump has to do to destroy public education.
Candidate Hopkins.
Look at stars, the ladies are pretty good on that clock, I tell you, stop it.
Well, let me thank Citizen Action, thank all my colleagues, thank all of you for coming tonight. I'm Attorney Richard Boykin, and on day one, as your congressman, I will hit the ground running and lowering costs for everybody, housing, healthcare, childcare, groceries, rent. And I'll make sure that we create more jobs in our district. We have job deserts in the district. And I'll make sure that our neighborhoods are safe. Everybody deserves to grow up in safe neighborhoods. I'm so honored to be here. I would be honored to have your support and have your vote on March 17th. Please go to my website. Check out our other policies. We've introduced some great policies, and we want to do it. We want to work for you, and we'll work day and night, lowering costs, creating more jobs, and making sure that our neighborhoods are safe. Thank you so very much. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Despite the odds being stacked against us, our communities, working class, Black, Brown, immigrant communities, we have made Chicago strong. We have built up its economy, we have raised resilient families, we have fueled its culture. Despite this, our opposition is trying to sow a strategy of division, to pit us against one another, to have a fight over crumbs instead of claiming the full table that we have built. But that story can end with us tonight. Every generation reaches a turning point where they get to decide, are they going to inherit a broken system that maintains the status quo that has never worked for them, or are they going to demand a new one? My name is Annabelle Mendoza. I'm running for Congress, and I'm asking you to join me. Join me in being part of a new generation of leadership that is rising across Chicago, rising across the country, and that refuses to accept that the way things have been are the way that they will be. I believe that we can achieve tremendous things together, and I'm fighting for those who have been ignored the longest. I know what we can accomplish when we invest in new leadership that brings new energy and innovation to our country. Thank you.
It's no secret, we're facing crises everywhere, and they're interrelated. We don't have the option of ignoring one and just solving one. We need new progressive energy in this district and across the country. The status quo, frankly, isn't going to be enough. Yes, as progressives, we need to make sure that we are fighting against the Trump administration. We need to fight against the militarized ICE invasion of our cities. We need to fight against cuts to our infrastructure and our benefits. And more than that, we need to be on the ground, fighting on behalf of our communities. It's one of the reasons why I'm at Broadview every week, standing up for the marginalized in our communities. But beyond that, it's not enough just to oppose Trump, because he's going to be gone. We need to have a message for what it looks like to really deliver. How are we going to build a government that delivers on behalf of regular people? How are we going to make housing, healthcare, and food more affordable? How are we going to take on the giant corporations that make our lives unaffordable, that rig our politics and break our sweat? I've done this work for years, for my entire professional career. And I'm here running to make sure that we can build a government that delivers for regular people and actually does the work on behalf of all of us, not giant corporations.
Yeah. Thank you, Citizens Action, and thank you everybody that came. My name is Tina Collins. Some of you have been on this journey and worked with me for a while in this district. This is the longest job interview ever to exist. But I've seen every corner of this district push back. Illinois 7 is rich, a rich culture from the Great Migration to the Great Recession. And I know what we can be. I'm running because everybody up here, as you heard, we're gonna go and fight for the right things, but that's not gonna be enough. We're gonna have to mobilize Democrats in this district to go to Battlefront State and win our country back. It's no longer good enough for us to wait status quo leadership to give us marching orders about what we should do. And Illinois 7 is prime for that. In a district that is one of the most diverse in this delegation and yet one of the most unequal, it is important that in this election cycle, we understand that we can vote for the district as it currently stands, or we can fight for the district that we should be. And I hope that you will fight with me. You can go to KeenaCollinsIL.com to learn more about my. Thank you.
Thank you, Citizen Action. Thank you to you all who are out and being here today. My name is Anthony Driver Jr. I'm a candidate for Congress in the 7th District, and this campaign is about giving people something to fight for and not just against. I want to be clear and say this off the rip that we do have to beat Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is not the North Star of this campaign, and he never will be. Justice is the North Star of this campaign, and we got to go through Trump to get to that point. This campaign is not just about resistance. It's a campaign about resistance. It's a campaign about repair. It's a campaign about renewal. It's a campaign about restoration. For some of us, beating Trump isn't going to be the end of it. We can't beat Trump. We can't beat MAGA and then go back to normal levels of power. Yep. And then go back to normal levels of gun violence. Normal levels of toxic water and lead in our water. Normal levels of being disenfranchised. We have to go a lot further than that. And so I'm Anthony Driver Jr. You can find out more about my campaign by going to driverforchange.com. And I'm not only asking for your support, I'm asking for your partnership. None of the candidates on the stage will be able to do this alone without you. I hope you join me.
It's been a pleasure being here tonight. Thank you, Citizen Action. Thanks to the audience and the people online watching. I'm Dr. Thomas Fisher. I've been with people in moments that define their lives, and while I can prescribe medication and I can stop the bleeding, I can't fix policies that shape our lives and lead people to be sick and injured just trying to live it. If you believe, like I do, that we are all one, then you recognize that we owe something to one another. When we're vulnerable, we need to make sure we have the resources to live that keeps people from coming to our mercy. We need to protect each other from masked men in our streets. We need to base our decisions on facts and science. It means moral leadership. It means that we bring together the resources that we need in order to create a future that's fundamentally better than our past. There is no going back. There's only going forward and creating a society where every child in the 7th District has an opportunity to thrive. Together we can build a future. We can make the 7th an example of what the future can be. Thomas Fisher. Thomas Fisher for Congress.
I feel so. On a very different platform than my colleagues here. I'm following your vote. I'm using technology to do that. VoteOurWay.org as an application where you will vote on actual legislation that's in front of Congress 10 or 15 minutes a week, and you will drive my representation of your needs on the floor of Congress. Very direct democracy versus anything else. I'm not making promises here, I'm making it so that you know that I'm going to work very hard. I also want you to take a look at the solutions I presented in the 5 bills, and they're very important for you to review because I need that feedback to make sure I'm doing that. I, from my perspective, have been paid for delivering results, and I would not be here if I hadn't been delivering results over 35 years. And we've been talking about these issues for a very long time. I think we need to take a much smarter approach to solving them, and I think in those bills are there. So please take a look at them, give me that feedback. I do intend to represent you honestly, transparently, and accurately.
Thank you, Citizens Action. Thank you, everyone that came this evening. We are living in a very difficult time. This is a crisis. This is not normal. We need a U.S. Congressperson that is going to be a fighter and is going to deliver. I have a proven track record of both. I was a Illinois state representative during the time that Bruce Rauner was governor. You remember how that was. But I fought Bruce Rauner, and I was able to restore, with many of my colleagues, which was the chief sponsor in restoring child care assistance to 15,000 families across the state of Illinois that lost child care. Same as the city treasurer of Chicago. I have done something that no other city treasurer has done, and that is taking on the banking institutions to provide affordable mortgages to our residents. When we had a workshop last week, as you can see, with over 7,000 registrants, where residents left there with affordable mortgages, help with assistance to increase their credit scores, access to capital to homes to start their own business. Let me say this in close. I live in this district. I've always lived in this district. As a matter of fact, I have never lived outside of an zip code in my life. Fighting is what I do. We need someone that is going to Washington, D.C., that is going to represent all of us. Advocacy is great. We need advocacy and action.
Treasurer, represent all of the people of the Southern District. Let me thank the Citizens Action Illinois for the years of leading with righteousness in our state. 50 years of helping legislators decide how to vote. And you have to be able to work with people. And of course, I read the big ugly bill that's now law, and it's hurting all of us. And of course, I voted to raise the minimum wage in Illinois. And I'm afraid in the nation that we all live in today, that our democracy is at risk. And people think that that's a joke. But as a Black man, when I go to that washroom, I remember the fights that people make for me to go in that washroom that doesn't say color only. Or when I go drink at that water fountain where it said at some point, white only. We're trying to go back to that time with Trump's America. And we need experienced leaders in Washington that understand how to fight against the Republicans and Trump in this nation. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Citizen Action, for having us tonight. My name is Rory Haas. I've served with Forest Parks Mayor since 2019. I was the first Black person elected in any role ever in Forest Park. Forest Park is the kind of community that was well prepared from the sundown, which said that Black people weren't necessarily safe there after Sunday. But today, Forest Park is a very different community. Forest Park is a fair community. Forest Park is a welcoming community. If you walk into our village hall, it looks like we've embraced new traditions. We celebrate all of our constituencies. I've embraced policies to make things affordable for Forest Park. I've rejected zoning codes that will make housing less affordable. At the local level, I was able to do something very simple. We stopped moving cars. We reject regressive revenue management. And those are the kinds of values that I would like to apply to those who belong in DC.
My name is Jessica Robinson, and even if you elect me, I'm not going to start the job till January of 2027. But we don't have to wait till then to start working. If you want universal free quality healthcare, education, true access to your government, and also living wage, ensuring that the wealthy pay their fair share in taxes, then I encourage you to send a deal out to your congressperson and also share it within your community. If you go on my website, jessicajrobbins.com, you'll see a guide that shows you exactly how to find all the representatives and also an email draft asking your representative to submit the HEAL Act for review. What will happen is office legislature will turn it into a legal task, and the Congressional budget of the Office of Joint Committee on Taxation has a team of economists, attorneys, and lawyers, and they will review the HEAL Act, calculate the true costs of revenue and the impact on society. It is the same thing that the Affordable Care Act report. Not only that, it will give us amazing data because we will see the Congress representatives that will not support the HEAL Act in those the ones that we vote out as station on March 17th, 2026. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
I'm Jason Friedman. Thank you, Citizen Action, for letting me lead off and letting me close. So I appreciate that. So, when I was 20 years old, maybe I was a little Pollyannish naive, but I thought one person would go to Washington, D.C. and make a difference. So I did. I went to Georgetown Law School. I worked in the Senate Judiciary Committee and then the Clinton White House. You know, I'm not a career politician, but I do know my way around Washington DC. And you know, I looked in the mirror the other day, saw a guy with a lot less hair. But you know, I still feel like that same 20-year-old kid, ready to go back to Washington DC and ready to fight for all of you. See what makes this very special. This 7th congressional district is one of the most diverse districts in the state, maybe the United States. That's not its weakness, it's its greatest strength. So no matter what neighborhood you're from, whether it's Chinatown or Oak Park, River North or North Lawndale, I'm here to fight for you. Your issues are my issues, and I will be there for you every step of it. My name's Jason Friedman, and over these next 5 months, I'm going to work my tail off to earn your support and your vote. Thank you very much and good evening.
Follow up, it's for children. Basically,